Hi, Mark here from the Tangibound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangibound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangibound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangiboundNetwork.com and see if Tangibound Network is right for you.
We're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals of any kind, so if you feel you do need help, please reach out and get the help you need. We have a whole list of things on our files page over on Facebook at facebook.com/crazylifepodcast, and or just search on the internet for the suicide prevention hotline number, or go to NAMI.org or whatever resource you can find. But just please reach out for help if you need it. If you feel as though you're going to harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. And try not to be alone. Also, if you feel that way and you realize that you're writing a note or making plans of how you would do, like harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. That's a huge red flag. And lastly, please do not replace the idea of therapy with listening to this show. Again, if you need help, please reach out and get the help that you need, or contact us. We can try to help you find the help that you need.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everyone. My name's Jen. I am your hostess for the evening. And with me, as always, we have Brian and Henno. Hey, guys.
Hi. Hi.
So, what's been going on?
You know, I've been getting my brain turned to mush.
Yay!
Your what?
My brain.
Oh, yeah. That's no fun. What's been going on?
Oh, just at work is like a lot of thinking stuff.
Ah.
I get done with work and I'm just like, I don't want to do anything where my mind has to engage.
Right.
If I do, by the time I get to the point where I'm actually even considering it, it's like, I should just lay in bed right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's very satisfying because I really enjoy it, but it's a lot, and I enjoy the challenge. I think the hard part for me at work right now is just the constraints of my job, and the like that still thing with not being on salary, where I'd be willing to work more.
Mm-hmm.
Not an option. So it's like, all right, well, that's that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
You get what I can give you, and that's about it.
and it's like, all right, well, okay. Like one night I tried clocking out and continuing to work, and the property manager caught me. She's like, I'm clocking you back in. Because I honestly didn't feel productive that day. I was just kind of I just was kind of distracted. So I was like, I'd totally work a little bit extra and make sure I get a couple things done. It's like, all right, you guys want to do it this way, fine.
Yeah.
That's also really illegal. Like they could really, if someone caught them or if you wanted to report them, even though you wouldn't, and probably no one would, it is, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So very much like that. And so I respect it. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So I ended up with whatever it was, an hour and something overtime. And so I just left work early one day and it's that. Then nobody can.
Yeah, it's true, right?
Right. So,
Yeah.
But so when I get home, what's been really nice is Benny has been a complete little monster and needs so much attention at night. So I give him lots and lots of attention. I've been taking him for extra walks and that kind of thing, and it's been a good excuse for that. But I'm so far behind on music stuff that I just want to do. And it's not that it's not that I don't want to do it. I keep, like last weekend, I told William, I'm like, okay, I'll check in with you on Saturday, and just never got around to it. And this week I texted him again, say, hey, I just want to let you know I'm still thinking about it, this and that, but I just don't have time right now. But I got pretty much what I needed to get done this week, and I went in for a couple hours today. So we're starting a new schedule. I'm getting weekends off.
Oh, really?
Awesome.
I haven't had in, I don't know, 12 years, 13 years.
How's that? Like someone else working the weekends then, or are they just not having you guys in on weekends?
So we will still work on Saturdays, but our new employee Frank started full time, and so now that there's 4 of us, Sean came up with a rotating schedule where a person gets a 3-day weekend, then they work Tuesday through Saturday. They have to be on call on Sunday, so no one's ever there on Sundays anymore.
Okay.
And and then so you get a 3-day weekend, a 1-day weekend, then a 2-day weekend, and a 2-day weekend.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice because the 3-day weekends will feel like kind of a mini vacation every so often. So that should be nice.
Yeah, and then I wanted, and even though technically they don't have to pay us for the on call on Sunday, I suggested that it would be some sort of a compensation would be appreciated, and would make. I mean, yeah, you can't make anybody leave, but if they know that that there's a exchange, then okay, yeah, you're not leaving the area. This is your deal. This is your weekend. And so they were looking at all these, like how much this, and some nurses get paid a flat fee, some places it's a small dollar amount or whatever it is. And I just finally was just like, well, what if it's just you only work 6 hours on Saturday, but you get paid for 8 hours because you're basically that weekend is shot. You're not going anywhere.
Right.
And everyone was good with it, so it's great. So Here you are, come on Saturday. And then whoever is that weekend, they're like on call for that whole week pretty much. And that was the other thing I set up where it's like everybody does 5 days is number 1 on call, 4 days is number 2, and then you're good for the remainder of the 4 weeks. And that again makes it real simple. It's like you're the number 1 guy. You just know that if you go in the movie theater, whatever it is, you need to be checking your phone.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's for me and Omar, it's a real big deal because we haven't had weekends. Antonio's always been cool about coming in and covering a weekend, so it'll be a little different for him. But I think the 3-day part will be cool for everybody.
Yeah.
And then just need to work out. The one issue will be snow removal, and I have no problem coming in on a Sunday and going up there, and Frank is like that too. He doesn't have kids, and they don't go. It's not like he doesn't go to church or anything like that. Hey, shush. So that's been good. And yesterday was just a real booty kicker of a day at work. We got tons done, and in the afternoon we were all kind of sitting there in the office together, and I just stopped and I just looked. It's like, isn't this a lot more fun? Everyone's like, yes, it's a lot more fun. And Omar even said, he's like, I don't wake up in the middle of the night anymore, first thing in the morning, and think, oh, God, what's the mood going to be like today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just great to have that moment of like, wow, we kicked butt today, and I felt like we had a good time. And I'm really trying to really express my gratitude because Sean, I really appreciate Sean told everyone that when I was getting into these reserves, is basically like our annual capital improvement projects and that kind of stuff, is when I was doing that I was not to be bothered, that I was going to need to devote time in the office, and everyone's been really respectful of it, and I really appreciate it. And I feel a lot closer with my boss, my property manager, and it's fun. I get to flex some muscles that I usually don't get to, that I actually do understand financials, and that I do have some basic math skills, and
Right.
I understand concepts that are a little larger than somebody that's usually in my position.
Right.
And that just, it feels good to feel like I can contribute something, and Frank's doing great, and so work's been awesome. It's nice to have that, and hopefully another week or so music stuff. Band's been playing together a lot lately, and we're actually writing new songs, and that's been I'm almost at that point where I'm looking forward to rehearsals again. Like, not that it's like, oh, I got to practice tonight. I just know it's good.
Mhm.
It's great to be at that rewarding place. And other than that, I've actually had a bit of a social card too, which has been kind of nice.
Wow.
Nice.
I'm doing some stuff and getting out of town a little bit, and and I actually even sold some stuff, and I was feeling really good about getting some. I finally got my crowns in for the dental work, and thank goodness they actually feel better. I still have a lot of sensitivity, but we'll see what happens over time. But I was really nervous about that. Here's another $2,500, and it better work, because they were very, very, very painful and sensitive leading up to it, getting the permanent ones in, and so that was good. But I just needed to rearrange some of the debt, basically, in a way that I could easily pay it. I'm totally set up with automatic payments, and I'm going to pay this off in whatever it is, 18 months or something. And I got all that done, and then today, as a matter of fact, right when we sat down on the computer to podcast, I checked my eBay account. I'm like, oop, missed that payment. Wow, that's I haven't seen a late fee in a while. But I'm not gonna beat myself up too bad over that one. It's like there was the last few weeks, I knew there were things out there where I was ignoring them. But pretty much everything's hitting pretty good right now.
Good.
There's plenty of stuff to be done, but I'm being. It's funny how I just. The wins that are occurring are so good that whatever disappointments that might be out there, or things that I would like to get done, I've no desire to beat myself up on it and let anybody beat me up right now, and that's a great place to be. That's the stress I was feeling this summer.
Yeah, good.
That's
good to hear.
Right, that was the source of all that stress. Most, I think most people can relate to that. That when we're feeling this stress, a lot of it's self-induced.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes, sure.
Yeah, and that's what was happening. Is there was actual legitimate things being asked of me, but the how I took it was up to me, and it's kind of nice to be at a point where it's like, yep, I'm doing what I'm doing, and if it doesn't work for you, friend or bandmate or whoever you are, it's like, well, that's just the way it is, and
fair enough, yeah.
Not squeezing any blood out of this here turnip, or is it a I don't remember what you squeeze blood out of.
A stone. Yeah, it's usually a turnip. Yeah, I've
Is
heard.
It's a turnip.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've heard stone also, which is weird, but I guess really no worse than a turnip. Not like turnips have blood either.
I was like, gonna squeeze any blood out of this. Let's get the puck out of here.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the like the late fee and not beating yourself up over it, and whereas I had the flip side of that, which was I had gotten myself close on money, and I had forgotten about eBay fees, and put me into the negative, and then that messed me up on some other stuff, and I was just beating myself up on it because, like, look, man, it's like I don't have much money, so to just randomly hand $35 or whatever it is over to the bank really makes me feel ragey, for my own mistake, But it's like, well, there it is. Not much I can do about it. But oddly enough, I didn't even contact the bank, but because I had money deposited like the next day or something like that, they refunded the fee. So, and I don't have like overdraft protection or anything like that on my account.
Nice of them.
So I was like, whoa, okay, so
yeah,
that was cool. And not something I expect to happen, every time or whatever, but it was cool that it happened that time. So, that was nice. But it just really, I haven't been selling that much on eBay, so I haven't had much money coming in, and things are still due. So I had to, same thing was I had to cancel a couple of things that it's nothing big. It's like I canceled like a couple streaming things that I have. That's not like it's a lot, but it's still, when you don't have much, every dollar's counting here. So you gotta. Until, down the road, if I'm in a better spot, then I'll get them again or something. But it's no big deal. It's just, especially when I really look at it, because since I've canceled them, I've also gone, I don't miss those, So there's something to that I think a lot of it is, like, some of them you have for so long, I think you kind of get hooked to just having them. And you don't realize that you're not watching them. It's like a gym membership that you're not paying for, whereas with, like, when I had, what was it? Paramount Plus, I only got it to watch Picard. Like, that was the only reason I had gotten it. And then when I went to cancel it after I watched Picard, they were like, hey, we'll give you a month for free. And then they did that for like 3 months. They kept giving me a free month. So I was like, well, I guess I'll keep it. And I watched other stuff, But then, like, I watched Lower Decks, and once that was over, I was like, okay, I'm canceling this. And then that time they didn't offer me a free month. So, but it was like, afterwards, I'm like, I'm not sitting here going, man, I should have kept that. I should have, it's like, I'm not looking at that going, oh, whatever. It's like when they put Picard season 2 in there, I'll probably get it again. So, like, like, once it's over, I'll probably get it, binge it, watch the next season of Lower Decks, and then I'll probably do the same thing. And it's like, well, I should do this with other, ones as well. But, also some of them do a really good job of, like, Disney was one originally that I was like, well, I'm just not going to keep this. I'll just watch what I want and then get rid of it. But then, this series came out, and then this series, and now the Marvel series, it's like they're spacing them out just enough that where it's like, well, at best I could cancel for a month. It's like, dang it. And I have the group thing, and I watch Hulu all the time. So it's only a few bucks more than just my Hulu subscription was. So it's like, well, but anyway, but like I said, it's interesting that once you cut some of that stuff, you're kind of like, it's similar, like, when you get rid of stuff sometimes that you just, oh, I can't get rid of this. And then when you finally do, you're just like, oh, wow, I haven't thought about it in like 3 months. Like, why was that so hard to get rid of? Like, I don't miss it. So I've been kind of going through that a little bit too, which is, not that big a deal, but, yeah, just kind of, it just sucked because immediately, when that overage happened, I beat myself up so bad that night, and then it's really frustrating and annoying. But, I had a therapy session finally, last week before? I don't remember when it was now. But, that was good, and came away with some stuff to kind of work on before the next visit. So that felt good. That helped me kind of straighten out, because I think I've been feeling really off, and I think it's the change of season. I think really is starting to, it'll not so much yet, but it's almost like you can kind of feel it coming because, again, we've been really fortunate to where it still felt like summer up until last week. Now it's starting to feel like fall. The air's got a different chill to it. Like as soon as the sun goes down, it's like 50 degrees now or 40 degrees, so it's definitely feeling like fall now. So, I think, my brain's kind of like, because usually that also means we're going to start getting less sun because it just goes to blah until like March. But we'll see. Maybe not. Who knows what the way the weather and world is now. Who knows how it'll be. But yeah, I haven't done much of anything. I just haven't felt like it. I also think it's because like they changed the way I take one of my medicines, like one that I was taking like when my anxiety would go up. My psychiatrist decided, or not decided, but told me that the medicine usually works better if you take it every day. And I'm not sure I'm going to stay on it this way because I think it's basically lowering my energy. Like to keep me from being anxious, I think it's also kind of making me more lethargic, and that's not something I need. So I'm going to have to talk to him about that next time I get a chance. So, but yeah, otherwise, things have been fine, I guess. Nothing crazy. Weirdly enough, part of the reason that they switched the medicine the way they did was because, it can help you sleep too. And I think I'm having more trouble sleeping since doing that. I don't know why, but I seem to be having more trouble sleeping. Although maybe, could be just my brain worrying because my brain does that when money's tight, as I've said on here various times before. It's just my brain immediately spirals when money starts getting tight on me. So it very well could just be that. And like you said, Heno, like how much of the stress out there, it's like how much should we put on ourselves? It's like with me, probably 99% of the stress I carry around is self-inflicted. It really is. There's very little stress put on me other times, but I always feel like I have the weight of the world on me. And then when I'm talking to other people, they'll just be like, well, I've talked with people and be like, well, I don't understand why you feel so stressed. Like, really? You don't see the giant boulder on my shoulders? Like, like it's, no? Are you sure? Because when I look in the mirror, it's there.
Right.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
I think that's about it for me.
Well, so, basically, it's hard because, quite frankly, I need to get better about journaling. I'll start there. I need to start journaling because, basically, I ended up having to have an urgent call to my psychiatrist today. Because I needed a med adjustment, like urgent med adjustment. And what led up to it, I can give you a bit of a backstory here. So, and it sounds so absurd, and I have a hard time even like vocalizing it because it sounds so absurd, but life was too good, and that triggered me. And it sounds so beyond absurd.
It doesn't to me, though, because you've been around me when things are going good, and I'm like at my most heightened, like, okay, something's gonna go, like, who's pulling the rug out? What's going, like, I become paranoid.
Well, I think, honestly, if I'm truly, and this is why I have to start journaling, because if I'm truly, like, track it all the way back, I honestly think that I started having some med issues about a month and a half ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually mentioned it to my psychiatrist and to my therapist that I really something's not right here with my meds. And my psychiatrist is like, well, let's do this, didn't want to take me off of anything. And so we kind of just left things as they were, but it's like even back then I could feel something's coming up here. Well, about mid-September or so, I ended up going to Kentucky, which I told you guys about, and started doing some really fun things. And actually, my relationship with my husband took a huge leaps and bounds forward. We're actually getting along amazingly well. We are working together well, communicating well, making decisions well. I mean, I honestly couldn't ask for anything to go better than it's been going.
Clearly, there's your sign that something's wrong.
Exactly.
No, I'm kidding.
Clearly,
I'm
clearly,
kidding.
I must destroy this immediately. Post haste. What can I do to blow up my life?
Yep.
Let me tell you.
This dam is working too well keeping water out.
It must poke at it.
Yep.
Poke. What's this random rock? We don't need that.
Yeah.
Let's pull it. So in work is going really well, and things are going really well at work, and I'm loving what I'm doing. I'm loving the people I'm working with. Some of it's kind of junky work, but whatever. It's interesting. He fills my day. I have no issues. I truly didn't have much to complain about the last 2 times that I was at my therapist. And I was talking about that. She's like, it's really good to see you happy. And I'm like, yes, it is. It's really, it's great to feel happy. I truly do. I feel very happy and content. And I said, but I have this thing. And she's like, what thing? And I said, my brain won't stop. And she's like, what do you mean it won't stop? I'm like, it's not stopping ever. Unless I go to bed, I'm constantly having to go, it's almost like an annoying puppy that's jumping on me going, and I'm like, no, just go, shush, go away. Just leave me alone. I'm trying to focus. Happy. We're trying to focus on happy here, people. Shush. And she's like, well, that's not good. I'm like, no, it's not good at all. And so we talked for a little bit and talked about different things that we can do to, help and all stuff. I'm like, okay, cool. I got this. And so, and for those that know me and know bipolar, they probably understand this comment pretty well. Is I was cycling so fast through emotions. By the time I thought to tell someone about something, it had already gone past at least 1 or 2 emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be like, oh my gosh, in tears. And I should really reach out and call someone. And then a song changes on the radio. And I'm like, oh, I love the song. I'm walking on sunshine. Tears are still streaming down my face. And I'm singing along and dancing in the car. It's like, there's something wrong here. This is not normal. That's bipolar, folks. Or can be. Not everybody has the same thing.
Right.
But
it's your bipolar. Yeah.
it is my bipolar. This is like my bipolar before I started meds.
Right.
I have not been this bad in, I can't tell you how long it's been since I've been this bad. And I had no idea I was this bad.
That's the worst part of a lot of mental illness. I've said the same thing on here about my depression, where most of the time I don't realize how bad it is until I'm out of it. And then it's like, oh, that's what was going on. I didn't realize that whole patch of oil slick was depression. I just thought things were getting squirrely, so it's weird how you'd think after dealing with it as long as we had that we'd be experts on, oh, I know exactly what this is, but not so much. That's because it wears such a clever mask every time, Oh,
yeah. It switches it up just enough.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's one of those things that it's a, something will happen. I'm like, oh, that's not healthy. That's not good. Maybe I should talk to the doctor about that one. And then, an hour later, I'm thinking about, isn't that past? It won't happen again. It's fine, or, oh, I'm just being a big sissy. It's not nearly as bad as what I think it is. And I just talk myself out of it because it's wily that way. And it's interesting because I go through these, as I'm going through this whole thing, I get signs. I don't like paying attention to them, and they're pretty blatant. Like my mom, are you feeling okay? You're kind of acting a little manic. Maybe I'm fine. I'm just enjoying life. My therapist asked me, how long has it been since you were manic? Like, I don't quite remember. She was like, interesting, type of thing. And the entire time, these little warnings keep popping up in front of me, and I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm just loving life. Life is good. There's no outside triggers. There's no reason for me to change anything because it is good. We will sit in good, and we will enjoy good.
Well, it's interesting to me, though, again, as the outside person who's been around you when you cycle like this, is that is one of the ways that's how yours manifests, is you tend to be more upbeat, that's why when, people think about you from years ago and they think about, like, if they're around you now and you're not as like all the time, that they think there's something wrong there, and you're like, no, actually I'm right now. Like, that was wrong. And that makes sense if everything's feeling so like everything's amazing, everything's woo, is like, think about it. It's like, generally we don't feel quite that way unless we're, like, for lack of a better term, on something, like if you're a little drunk, everything's amazing, the world's great. If you're high, things are amazing, world's great. But when you're not, there's still kind of a little ebb and flow, even if it's not much, to where you don't necessarily, you're not redlining or pushing the ceiling. And like you were saying, it's like, it's hard for you to notice, as a lot of people, it's hard to notice when you're pushed like when the gas is all the way down versus things are just good. And that's a tough thing because, we want life to be good. So when it's good, why would you complain, right? And yet with somebody with bipolar like yours, that can be when it's at its most dangerous.
And speaking of which,
oh my, I didn't mean to segue there.
Little segue. We are all laughing and having fun with this, and I do like to joke about it because it makes it easier for me to talk about. But I am still kind of right now manic. I'm not 100% manic, but I am manic.
Yeah.
I'm not
kind of.
I had that feeling when I first joined the call and you started talking, because again, you're in a higher energy bracket than you normally are for 10 o'clock at night.
Like, I'm in jazz hands and spirit fingers tonight, let me tell you.
When you remind me of high school, Jen, that's usually when I'm like, oh, I wonder if, so
wrong.
Had you not brought this up, I might have asked you, because I was kind of feeling that way, but obviously you said it, so.
I'm outing myself.
Well, good.
So Wednesday, we had a big organizational chart announcement in my department. The president of the department was there, who soon to be the president of the company, the CEO of the company at some point, real soon. He invites us all out for drinks and pizza. I go. Of course, I need to go.
Really? Pizza? The guy who's going to become the CEO takes you out for pizza? Like, not a steak dinner or something? Like, really?
Yeah, it was just drinks, but pizza was kind of our snacking item.
Oh, okay. I mean, not that I'm knocking pizza. I like pizza, but still. Like, usually when it's a company thing, it's,
It was like 50 people, so he wasn't going to be flipping the big 50. Well, probably close to the 30.
All right, fine. You just got to get a little stingier with the guest list. All right.
Let's just say I was flying high. Me and Mania, my co-pilot, we are going to make this our party. So,
oh boy.
As I'm walking in, this is going to be good too, because as I'm walking in, the guy that just got named the VP of my department that has his office right next to my desk, he's walking in too. So I'm like, oh great, this is going to be awesome, right? So I walk up to him, like, hey, so boss cubed, and he laughed, And he's like, hey, I said, so I'm going to have to watch what I say now because your office is literally right outside my desk, isn't it? And he starts laughing. He's like, oh, I'm real easygoing. And I'm like, that's cool, whatever. And so we're chit-chatting, and my manager sees us talking, so she comes up, and we're having this great conversation, and I am just charming the pants off everybody. I'm making jokes. I'm being intelligent, saying all these intelligent, witty things, and just being da-da-da-da, look at me, fella the ball. And so as I'm going along here and meeting different people and stuff, and there's some accounting people that I've been meeting with and talking with, and the recruiter that recruited me to the company, and I'm like, great. So I sit down with them, and we're chit-chatting and having all this intelligent conversation about proper formatting and emails and that and the other. And again, witty, charming, smiling, everything's wonderful. And the president of the department decides to sit down across from me, looks straight at me. He's like, hi. I'm like, hi. Introduce myself. And he's like, how's it going? I'm like, great. How's it going with you? He's like, great. And da-da-da-da. The CEO of the company comes up and behind me. He's like, Jen, how's it going? Because I know him very well. Because he has had lunch with me before. So I'm like, hey, how's it going? So I get to chit-chatting with him a little bit, and the president of my department sees me chit-chatting with the CEO. And then so he's, the president guy is talking to me, and we're chit-chatting and having stuff, and he's talking about how, he's one of the things he admires about the current CEO is how friendly he is and how he talks to people and stuff, and how he would love to, really do more of that. But he gets so in his head when he's walking around, he's thinking about things, not thinking about saying hi to people. So he said, no problem. He said, next time you walk past my desk, which you've done multiple times and not said hi to me, by the way, but I take responsibility for this. And he's like, you do? I'm like, I do. Next time you walk past my desk, I will be the first one to say, hi, how are you doing? And he's like, all right, sounds good. I'm like, great. Yeah, we talked for like almost an hour. Almost everybody else was gone by the time I had left.
Meanwhile, the flip side of this is this guy sitting there feeling like he's, been taken prisoner by Jen in her constant conversation. He's like, I just want to go home. I have a family. Please just let me leave.
I also family.
I have no idea. I mean, all I can think after I left, I kept running like for the last 2 days, running everything over in my mind. I cannot think of anything I said, quote unquote, bad.
Right.
I just wasn't very stuffy, shall we say, and kind of, more like more reserved and talking, and I was just more like, hey, hi, how's it going, type of thing. So
really quick, I have to say really quick that I wish that we had a video recording of this whole conversation you've given, because when you said beforehand, when you were like, I get more jazz hands, you have been 100% jazz hands through the whole conversation. Your hands have been dancing back and forth, and that's why I've been laughing to myself.
I have the video.
Oh,
My recorder always records video.
Oh, interesting. Well, maybe we'll have to cut that and put it up on our YouTube then.
So
we'll see. I'm sure if I would have said or done something truly embarrassing, that someone would have like leaked it to my manager, and my manager would have leaked it to me, and or
really,
God forbid if HR would get involved. But
if anything, they'll probably think that, Jen just loosened up because we were not in the work setting or something. That's probably more of how it'll be perceived, if anything.
Most of them have never met me before.
Yeah.
So they don't really have a baseline.
Got that going for you.
Well, that's going to be interesting now if they do see you at work where you are a little more reserved. And maybe like, it was cocaine. Yeah. Like, was she high the other night?
I'm getting help for that.
Yeah.
So I mean, and honestly, I'm handling it much better than I normally would, because normally I'd just be an absolute sobbing basket case. But and to make things even better that evening, um, I was in an area of the town that I'm not very familiar with.
Oh no.
So I was driving, and all of a sudden, flashers are behind me.
No.
And I had already had a couple drinks that night. So I'm like, oh boy. So I get pulled over. And the guy comes up to the car. He's like, ma'am, do you know why I pulled you over? And I'm like, no.
He's
Thank
like,
you.
he's
But
like
no.
for kidnapping a CEO at that dinner meeting.
No. He's like, you were like excessively speeding through a school zone where they're trunk or treating. And I'm
Oh.
like, oh, I am so sorry. I'm like, I am lost, and I just need to find my way to the expressway. And as you can tell from my driver's license, I'm not even in the right state right now, because I'm from Michigan and I was in Ohio at the time.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can see that. I said, I just want to get back to Michigan. So he looked at it, he's like, I'll be right back. So he goes and pulls me up, and of course I have no warrants or anything against me. So he brings me, he's like, ma'am, I will let you go. No, I'm not going to write you a ticket. Just slow down. And this is how you get to the expressway to go home. I'm like, thank you. That's all I need is the expressway to go home. Okay, thank you. So, on my way, I get going home. I literally texted my friend. I'm like, I feel like I have Felix Felicis on me, or in me right now. Which, if you are not familiar with that is, go watch your Harry Potters again, misters and Mrs. But it is actually the good luck potion from Harry Potter. And yeah, so I actually have that on a text. But it's somewhere between, so that was Wednesday. So yesterday, it all hit. Everything.
Well, the pendulum's
Like,
got
oh
to swing
my gosh,
back, right?
Yep, I was manic. I've been racing, and I actually took a moment, because my psychiatrist is very clinical. I appreciate that about him. So I try to organize my symptoms so that I can articulate them well for him, so he understands what I'm dealing with. So I took a little mental inventory. Here's what I came up with. Mood cycling really quickly from high to low. So much so, by the time I think to tell someone, I'm on to another place. Multiple moods, even as fast as within the hour, with no significant triggers. Mind racing, lack of memory, have to check texts and emails to see what I actually said versus everything that's going on in my head. Feeling like there's two worlds, one in my head, one in real life. Lack of appetite, tired but sleeping at least hours solid a night. Lack of interest in even personal appearance. I will tell you guys, and I promise to always be honest with you, I have not showered in over 3 days.
And that's why we do the show via Zoom. No.
That's why we do the show via Zoom. No.
Heno moved to Idaho because Jen Stink was so bad.
I tell you. And the reason I'm telling you guys this is, normally I'm, every day or every other day. Usually every other day, because it dries my skin out.
Right.
But I always put makeup on before I leave the house. I always shave my legs before I get a pedicure. I always do my hair up whenever, even when I'm going down to the grocery store and stuff, I always brush my hair and make sure I look nice and neat and tidy. All of those things have started to slide.
Yeah, that's definitely, as with any mental illness, self-care, if self-care suffers, that is a sign that something isn't right. Because I know that I've done the same thing recently to where I haven't cared much at all. So I feel you on that.
And so the combination of all of this kind of hits me pretty heavy on Thursday.
Yeah.
And then it dawns on me, above all else, I have told no one about any of it.
Mm-hmm.
No one. So I texted my husband, who gets up around noon because he works nights. Like, give me a call when you get up. I said, nothing bad, just gonna need to talk. So he calls me and we start talking, and I like leveled it all out, and I said, he's like, why? I'm like, honestly, it was going through so fast. I kept thinking, oh, okay, well, that's past. And then another wave hits. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's past. All right. Oh, I got this. No, I handle, I had all this junk. Everything was just all this junk in my head. And when I broke it down for him, and the first words, God love him, why he's part of my support system 100%, is he's like, okay. He's like, so have you called the doctors? I'm like, yes, I called the doctors. I made appointments. And the first they can get me in is Thursday next week and stuff. He's like, do you need to go to the hospital? I said, no, I think I'm okay because I'm not suicidal or I'm not, no physical harm.
But
so
sometimes, but just for transparency's sake, sometimes it is important if you are feeling, even if you may not harm yourself or others, sometimes you may need help that badly that you need to go to the hospital. So, and I'm not saying Jen, I'm just saying in generally a person, because if you can't get an adjustment for a week or a week and a half, for example, Jen's scenario could lead her to make bad decisions, or something bad could happen in a week and a half. That may not be soon enough. And your psychiatrist would basically probably tell you the same thing, which is go to the hospital, because they can treat you right now. So I just want to make sure that people understand the gravity of that. It's not only just for like suicide or potential harm to others, that sometimes it's just your situation feels so dire that you need help now.
Well, so I'm like, okay. So that's the first one thing he asked. He's like, "Can you go to the hospital?" I said, "No." I said, "I am 98% sure that it is a med adjustment. It's not a life adjustment that needs to happen, because life, like I've mentioned, is pretty solid and stable and happy and good. So there's like one trigger, but it's managed. So other than that, I mean, there's really no outside influences that are triggering me. So it's got to be a chemical, like my brain chemistry got out of whack or something funky.
Right.
Or
if nothing else, it's definitely time to talk to, because again, the rules have changed. So it's time to talk to not only him, but your doctors and everything, because everyone in your support system, at least in that, that range, needs to know what's going on. So that's, absolutely great.
So I called him. So we had a good talk, and he's like, all right. He's like, can you be by yourself? And I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm good. Yeah. I've got a couple key friends that I talk to most of the evenings, but when I'm by myself and stuff. But I think I'm okay. He's like, because your mom and my mom and
I'm up all night. Yeah, exactly. There's definitely people, like, right?
You can go stay with someone. I mean, because again, with him working nights, he won't be home.
Right.
And I said, no, I think I'm good there. He's like, okay, cool. He's like, all right.
Really quick, good on him for asking those questions, because the go to the hospital one and can you be alone are questions that people may not normally ask. Those are great. Right. Those are like next level questions. So good on him for asking all of the questions he did. That's a great job by him.
This ain't his first rodeo.
No, I know, but still, credit where it's due. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things that that makes us work so well together, is the fact that, like, at one point I wasn't telling him enough, and I said something and he caught on to it, and he's like, whoa, back up. And what? And he's like, something's not right here. And this was years ago. He's like, what'd you say again? And so I told him. He's like, what's going on in your head? I'm like, well, nothing really. Why? He's like, something is going on up there.
Yeah.
You're marinating on something. He's like, something's going on up there. And if you don't tell me what's going on in your head, I can't stay in front of it.
Right.
So, and I told him, and he's like, okay, let's break it down. This ain't fair, And so we work it out. But so he's pretty good for. It's unexpected for when you first meet him, because he's a car guy, and he's kind of rough and tumble and hunter and all this other stuff. You don't necessarily expect him to have quite the emotional EQ that he ends up having in certain circumstances. Other circumstances, but when it comes to when it comes to
Just can't let him
to it.
have this one, can you?
I cannot. No. So, yeah. So I ended up. So Thursday, I called my doctor's office. I got the appointment and stuff. I woke up this morning, and I felt much better than I have because I kind of have an action plan in place. But I'm still very, very tired, and my brain was still pretty racy. So I called the doctor's office, and I'm like, all right, I just need to know, can I take more of what I have? I mean, can he call me in something, for the weekend? I just need to get straight, because Tuesday and Wednesday, my director of logistics is coming in, and I'm spending 2 days with him, including going to dinner Tuesday night. So I need to be able to, I can, fudge mania me through 2 hours. I can't take a chance of spending, 10 hours and another 6 hours with the guy and not say something or do something that is going to be a detriment to myself. That's just way too much time with that person. I can't front that well. I'm good, but I'm not that good. So, so she's like, well, I'll have him call you. And he called me back, and God love him, nobody else called me back. My doctor called me back. My psychiatrist called me back himself. And he's like, I got this kind of crazy note from you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it was kind of a crazy message, because I think I might have been kind of crazy when I messed it. And he's like, all right, what's going on? And so I gave him a brief, because he likes it brief. And if I start running off about too much other stuff, he'll cut me off and he'll bring me back to topic.
Yeah. That's like the psychiatrist that I've seen.
More of, I'm sure.
Well, like the psychiatrists that I've seen and stuff have been the same way, because it's like what they need to know is what is relevant. They don't need the whole story, or they don't need stories, because it's like that's what you're in therapy for. Like, you're coming to me for med adjustments, so I need basically yes, no, or this and this kind of thing. So it's one of the things I kind of hated about psychiatrist appointments was they're very boom, 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 see ya. Like, there's not a lot of bedside manner. There's not a lot of, hey, let's have a little chat. It's pretty much boom, boom, boom. All right, next time.
See, that's why my general practitioner is his wife. Because if he's a little short with me, I tell her, and she walks down to his office, and she tells him what's for. Because she wears the pants in that family.
Right.
I'm telling you that.
Yeah.
Love her. She's a little spitfire.
She is. I absolutely is.
Yeah. She is a spitfire. Love her to death. And I do really, I mean, my psychiatrist is pretty awesome.
Right.
So he's like, how much are you taking? Because I'm on lithium. For those who didn't get that a few episodes ago when they put me on lithium. He's like, how much you at? And I told him. He's like, once or twice. And I'm like, oh, once a day, huh? And he's like, I remember we talked about that twice a day. I'm like, okay, fine. I forgot about twice a day. He's like, all right, twice a day, and I'm up in the quantity. And unfortunately, when he ups the quantity, it causes some side effects. But yeah, he's like, I'm up in the quantity twice a day. I'm like, fine. I said, no, that's actually a really great idea, and I'm glad that you mentioned it, because I didn't think about it going that way. And he's like, yeah. He's like, so you start doing that.
He's like, that's weekend. Why I have the thing hanging on the wall, and why my appointments are $200 an hour. Yeah.
Respect.
Yeah.
Respect is black.
Yeah.
Fine. So he's like, what we're gonna do? He's like, I'm gonna call it in. You're gonna pick it up, and you're gonna do this for the next 2 days, and then Monday morning you're gonna call and you're gonna give me an update. And he's like, and we're going to talk on Monday, and you're going to tell me where you're at. And if you need to see me on Monday, he's like, we will fit you in. We will find the way to get you in.
Yeah.
He's like, you can wait till Thursday, because that's when my appointment is.
Yeah.
He's like, that's fine too. He's like, but you just check in with us on Monday and just let us know where you're at. And I said, okay, I can do that. So, long story short, that's the game plan going forward, folks. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks more than anything else could ever suck in this world. And I know it sounds overdramatic, but the fact that no matter, I can do everything right, and I can make every move right, and I can, I can get it down to a science. I've been working on this for 10 years. And like, okay, I take this pill here, I take this pill here, I do 2 engagements, social engagements a week. This work is equal. That's my even spot. No more, no less. Even spot. Just enough stuff going on, just enough stress to keep things fun, but not over the top, and everything's just like, you can't. It's
Yeah.
Seriously, I feel like I am on a log roll. I can't talk. A log roll. Like I'm standing there, and when it first starts and you're nice and balanced, you're like, oh, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And then it gets faster, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yep.
and it sucks because there is no forgiveness for it. Like you guys will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's really tough unless you know something about it, or you've had it, or like me, I can't. I've the only mania I've had is when I went on one antidepressant. When I first went on it, I had mania for about 4 days, 5 days. That's the most mania I've ever had. So I can understand that, and I felt the hangover from it. So at least I experienced it once, but it's not. But what I do understand is, like you were just saying, you can do everything right and still 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, whatever, and then one day the cart just goes off the rails.
Yeah.
And then it takes 2 weeks of that, or a week of that, and then it takes you weeks to get back to even, only for it to go, it's very. And I'm sure Heno can talk from like the recovery standpoint. It's probably a similar thing where there's people who are on in his meetings that he's talked about before, where somebody will have 10 years and still the cart goes off the rails, and then it's like, well, I gotta get back on. But it's exhausting to have to do it every day, to know
And-
I've got to do certain things, because if I don't, the chances of that cart coming off the rails today go up significantly. It's such a fight. It's so horrible that any of us have to deal with it.
And it's one of those things. Like if I went to that party on Wednesday night and had too much to drink, and came in the next day and someone said something to me, I'm like, I'm sorry, I had too much to drink. Oh yeah, we all been there.
Yeah.
I can't really walk in the office and go, sorry, I was manic.
Yeah.
I walk in and say, oh, I was manic. My bad. I'm sorry if I said anything I shouldn't have. And then everyone's just going to stare at me.
What's interesting, though, is that realistically, the way your mania manifested was very similar to you being drunk.
Yeah. And that's probably what people are going to think.
Right. So, and I'm not saying necessarily for a cover, but if people can't understand the mania part, you could kind of be like, hey, it's very much like if you get drunk. Like how many people look who almost everybody has used alcohol. If you drink, you've used alcohol as a social lubricant at some point, probably, especially if you're a person like that's shy or has anxiety. I know I have. I've said before, I wish I could just be me after like 2 beers, because that me, I'm outgoing. I'll talk to anybody. Doesn't matter. Before that, though, I will not start a conversation with anyone unless you are my friend, or I came there with you, basically, or it's like a bartender, because they have a job to do. I'm supposed to talk to them, like as far as like, hey, I would like this, and if a conversation strikes up, fine. So in that situation, you would have the ability to explain it in that way and say, hey, it very much manifests sometimes almost like I'm drunk, because this is what's going on, and you get a hangover from it. Like literally where you're at now is you're in the hangover from your, redlining. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, I would say I'm probably not quite redlining, but I'm I'm still fairly close.
No, what I mean is when you're at your peak of your mania, that's what I was meaning by redlining, is you're full, like, we've said a long, long time ago on here, it's like when people talk about people being too negative all the time, it's like, well, you don't want to be the other way all the time either. Either polar is exhausting. And in your case, as it's called, bipolar, you get to experience both sides of it. So you get to have,
My wonky teeter-totter.
yeah, but it really does. It is similar to being drunk. You feel great, and then you pay the consequences, essentially. So yeah,
It's just it's just super exhausting, and this is by far the worst bout I've
Yeah.
had in forever, and I'm just so beyond grateful that I have grown enough to be able to recognize, at least to control it to the extent that I have.
Yeah, and to ask for help. Never diminish
ask
that
for
either.
help.
Yeah.
And
'Cause-
it's not that I mind asking for help. It's I don't think I need it because it disappears.
right.
I cycle.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh my gosh, I need help. Oh no, I guess I don't need more. Oh, but I need help. No, I'm okay now. And
Yeah.
so you don't know when in the whole cycle to like go stop. When actuality, when that cycle even starts, I should be calling out and
Yeah.
saying help, not thinking, oh, it'll pass or I can work through it.
Yeah. That's
It's,
why I made that comment about like the situation where I go from like my psychiatry or psychiatrist care, is that I don't talk to the psychiatrist directly. I talk to a social worker, and then she talks to the thing. That's just the system at the moment. But remember when I was like, this is why I want to set it up while I don't need it? Because in that scenario with you, if you didn't already have this stuff set up, you probably would have to go to the hospital for help, because it'd probably be a month or two before you could get into somebody, even if with it being a rough, unless they had a cancellation or something, because you'd be new at that point. So, it's why it's important to establish your support system when you can and keep it going, so that in the event that you do need something, it's already there. You don't have to then go find it. It's like if you get a really bad cut and you're like, oh, I don't have a first aid kit. You can make do, but it's like, man, if I had a first aid kit here, I'd have Band-Aids and I'd have gauze, or, so it's the same kind of thing. It's very important to have those tools at the disposal, just in case you hit a point to where you need that help. So like, that's why I was like, it's so good also that you recognize that, and we're like, hey, I need to call and get things even back out, because something isn't right here. So, like I said, that's always a win in these scenarios, because a lot of times, like you said before, you don't notice until you're all the way through it, basically, or you've moved past wherever it was. And even if that's the case, you still should probably talk to your therapist and your psychiatrist so they know you had this. Even if you came through it and now everything feels fine, you should still let them know. That way they know that if you come in next time and you mention it again, they go, hey, maybe the medicine's not working because she's having more manic episodes, So that's why it's very important to everyone listening, be honest with your doctors, have a good, have that relationship. And if you don't feel you do, I know it's tough. It can be really tough with insurances and all that stuff. But if you have options, try to find another doctor.
I'm very fortunate, and I do realize that I'm in a very good spot, that I have a good team that helps to take care of me. And, at this time, I don't feel that I made any significant negative impact on my career or my life. Yeah. So it could have been really bad, but it wasn't.
Right.
So I'm got to look forward and just keep pushing.
The tough part is like really to minimize like these scenarios. Like I would be so tempted to not go to any social gatherings.
No, I go to social gatherings and I get quiet and I just let it happen.
Right. No, it's just like I said, like me, I'm just saying my situation. Like I would be like, oh, I'm going to skip the whatever. Cause I'd be like, you know, the more time I'm around them, the more likely I am to expose the cracks, basically. You know, so I like the fact, and you shouldn't, you know what I'm saying? It's like you should go to those things. You should be able to go to those things because that's part of a normal, air quote, life, is being able to attend those functions and whatever, you know, and not have to worry that you've, you know, train wrecked your career or whatever. So that should be part of a healthy, you know, life for you. So, you know, my anxiety and my, like, don't go do anything is what would tell me that. But I'm glad that you're still putting yourself in those scenarios because you should be, you know.
Yeah, and I miss it if I didn't.
Yeah, exactly. Well, not to mention, not going could be detrimental to your career. Because they go, well, how come Jen's never part of these team building dinners, or she never wants to this, or, you know, you just never know where these things create negative opinions of you. So, you know, might as well go and have a good time and, you know, I don't know, whatever.
I made an impression. I guess that's what life's about, right? Making an impression.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that, you know, I would assume that new CEO probably won't forget you anytime soon. So.
No, I guarantee you he probably will remember my name.
Yeah. Good or bad, TBD. But, you know.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
I guarantee he's not going to forget me.
Right. Also, I want to say that I appreciate, much like when I did that episode, like just where I was talking about how I was feeling when I was really in a depressive funk, I appreciate the fact that you were willing to share your, like, the notes that you shared with your doctor, because that stuff, like some of the stuff you said in there is like, I never would have thought of that. It's not something I experience, you know, so I like that transparency because somebody, you know, you never know, somebody listening might help them understand someone else's, you know, bipolar better or their own a little bit. So, you know, thank you for being transparent in that aspect as well. Because, you know, like, you know, we all know we don't put 100% of ourselves into this podcast because there's still elements of things we would like to keep to ourselves, but we are very open about a lot of things. So, you know, I'm glad that you didn't keep that stuff to yourself or just talk about it with us off show kind of a thing. I think it's important for people to hear what goes on in someone's head when they're dealing with stuff like this.
And it's the best way I just ever was able to describe it so far was when I was talking to my mom. Like, it's like having a radio on loud and you're trying to focus and read a book.
Yeah.
So it's nothing. It's like just this noise. And then a lot, you know, certain meds, when I'm able to when I take them, it's like all of a sudden the radio gets turned down or gets turned off completely.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, it's kind of nice. That's what it's supposed to feel like. But yeah, and so it's literally, I'm trying to focus and I'm trying to talk. And when I made that comment in the notes that I was reading, I truly I can't keep track. And that's a huge red flag for me. It's when I'm having a hard time keeping track of what I actually said.
Yeah. That's one of the ones.
All the stuff that goes on in my head, because I have so many different scenarios, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to do this, and and they're going to say this, and I'm going to do that, and I have all this stuff happening up here, and there's like 1,000,001 options. I don't know which option came out of my mouth, actually.
Yeah, and that's wild. I did not know that. That's something I wouldn't have considered. It's weird. There's, like, every mental illness seems to have those little things that no one really would think about as part of it, you know. Some of it makes sense. Like, if you told me that and it was associated with depression, I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? Like, because there's generally like a brain fog that kind of goes with depression. But I never thought about the fact that, you know, literally, like, what you're doing is, you know, your brain is like a Tasmanian devil spinning around, you know, in the cartoons, and, you know, and, you know, So
and just
I wouldn't
spit
think of
things out, and they just happen
Yeah.
to fly out my mouth. And then it's just kind of like, yep, that's gonna be it. That's what we're gonna say.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll
See,
see if this flies.
Oddly enough, once again, similar to being drunk, though, sometimes people are like, "What did I say?" You know, like, yeah,
And that's honestly one of my biggest fears is that it's um, like a drunk person has tendency to do. We think we're a lot funnier than we actually are, and that's one of the things that I'm so afraid of is when I'm manic, I'm not I have no gauge on other people. It is literally all about me.
yeah,
Like everything is about me. So if you're making a face like I've offended you, unless it's really dramatic,
Yeah, you
it
don't
does not compute. It can't break through the crazy fogs that I'm
Wow.
in.
Okay.
So it is pretty much get out of my way and enjoy it if you can, and if not, sorry. You know, I can't adjust to anyone else. I just have to be and just bah.
Right.
when I would have manic episodes when I drank, that's exactly how it was. I mean, when I got high off of alcohol, and I'm literally talking, actually, I'm working on not abusing that word. Nothing in writing in front of me.
Right.
But I was high,
hmm
amped up high, and everything that you've described tonight is exactly how that is. Just that inability to connect with other people's emotions, what they might be feeling. There's just this level of self-centered focus, and yeah, you described mania, and that was what I chased towards the end.
Mm.
When I was deep in my alcoholism, that's what I chased. That was that feeling because it felt good.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like one of the best feelings in the world. It can truly destroy your life, so
Yeah.
you have to avoid it. But it is one of the best feelings.
Yeah.
It was absolutely horrible. The next day, they were my worst crashes.
Oh
Worst
yeah. Yeah.
Oh sure, yeah.
I can speak to that even with the one time that I had from mine was those 3 or 4 days or 5 days, whatever it was. It was the better part of a week. And it was, boy, I had all the energy. I got all this stuff done. I was like, man, this is what it's like to feel normal. And no, I wasn't feeling normal. I was manic in that moment. Because as soon as I was talking with my doctor about it, he was like, or she was like, yeah, that's mania. Like, that's really common for that medicine. I'm like, oh, okay.
Shot the mark a bit there.
Yeah. And then, a couple days later, though, that crash, and I was so, and maybe because, I don't know, like, I just assumed maybe it was bad because, I have depression, so maybe the floor was just easier to get to, kind of a thing. But she told me the same thing. She was like, no, she's like, the crashes for mania are bad. She's like, they're worse than, alcohol or whatever generally. So I was like, okay, that sure felt like it, though. It really felt like that, like, the first couple days especially felt like a really bad hangover. And I guess to an extent they kind of are. You kind of, you've been running on a chemical for that amount of time,
It's the emotional component that was always the hardest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I'm feeling the physical parts of the alcohol, but it's the emotional part that's just sticking with me hard.
Right.
And recall being that aloof and flying that high, and how that I afterwards I recognize it's like, okay, that could be kind of embarrassing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there's nothing embarrassing in the moment,
No.
but afterwards,
Yeah.
oh, there's such shame.
Yeah. Well, again,
Know that
Such-
it's
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I just know to your core, it's like, okay, that's not me. That's not
Yeah.
who I want to. Even though at the time you're like, I wish I could be this way all the time. And the next day you're like, no, because I remember how it feels. I remember feeling out of control, but
Yeah.
I just didn't know it.
Yeah.
Totally out of control. There was no governor.
Right. I mean, I always have trouble sleeping anyway, but during those few days, I barely slept because I was just so keyed, and that is not a way I would want to live, Like you said, it's like I couldn't stop it. I couldn't calm it down. I was just so, like, hey, I didn't know my energy level went to 11, like, whew.
I remember when you had that, and because we podcasted and you started talking about everything that you'd been doing, it was like,
Yeah. I was like, I haven't done this much in like a year.
the way that you were, the way you came across on the podcast, the way you were talking is like the way Jen is right now. There's this unbelievable animation and just
Yeah.
this level, like, okay, this is, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. This is not normal behavior. This is, it wasn't, but.
So, Brian all at once.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
I've had friends who knew me pre and after meds and stuff. But I had some good friends I used to go out dancing and stuff with when I was manic quite a bit of the time. Afterwards, we went out, dancing and some couple drinks after I had some medicine and got things straightened out a bit. And they were very nice, and we had fun and everything. But one of the women said, kind of miss the old Jen.
Mm.
I'm like, okay, which is really crappy thing to say to anybody.
Yes.
But especially it's like, oh yeah, I missed it when you were sick. It doesn't.
It's totally what they're saying. They may not mean it that way,
really
but that
yeah,
is,
they don't
yeah.
mean it that way, but that's really what it is. It's like, oh, I miss it. You were much more fun when you were sick.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm much more me now, which is better.
Right.
As long as I don't mess my meds up.
Yeah.
So,
did you go through that, Heno? Like when you quit drinking, did anybody hit you with that? Like I miss the old Heno?
No, because I was horrible.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Scary.
Okay.
Yeah, and there was no. Oh, you were way more. Well, you know what? Actually, I am putting my recovery down by saying that. When I got sober, I did not change enough that anyone said anything different.
Okay.
No one said that I was. No one has ever said that I'm not as fun as I used to be.
Because you're still a horrible person.
Exactly.
Yeah. No.
So, this is the part that I have always been extremely grateful for. The recovery that I had is that I was shown the way to do everything I did before, but just with alcohol. And anyone that had seen me at my worst, it was not good. There any sort of level of like you were really fun was erased that night. So I'd like to think that I'm just as fun as I was, and I don't get to that bad part, and that is 100% because of who I was around and how I was shown recovery, and that I never was a dry drunk ever because I never tried it really.
Yeah.
I went full force into I want a wonderful life. Well, I guess I say I had faith that was going to happen. I was scared to death.
Yeah.
I was right, but yeah, I know people that have had that, and I know people that are drinking again because of that, because they had friends that were just like, I enjoyed you a lot more when you used to drink, and they may not feel, and they don't feel like they were alcoholics, like their problems were other things. That's fine. I'm totally good with it.
That makes sense, I guess, because it makes sense. We all know people who can be like, off their butt, drunk, and are just the life of the party. And then there's some that when they have that much alcohol, they're the ones you want to throw out because they just become mean or just a jerk or whatever. So I guess that makes sense. I could see where if, like you were saying, it's like especially if you're one of those ones that, well, your goal was not to just catch a buzz, each night. You're, from what you've said before, so that makes a lot of sense. I was just curious because it's like you hear that so much from people, like even if they're not an alcoholic, like if there's somebody just is like, hey, you know what, I quit drinking, and then people be, you were so much more fun before, and it was like, yeah, but I was miserable. I wasn't, also, or like when, I went through a dry patch for a while, and I was just like, I realized that everything we were doing started with let's get drunk and it was like, what are we doing here? Like, like at some point I'm over that, and to like now I occasionally have a drink, or I'll have a few beers or something, but I barely drink now. And it was just because it's like, it doesn't have to be part of a social thing for me anymore. I've gotten to where I'm just like, I can go out and be social without it, or I can have it if I want to, I'm not, and if someone says I was much more fun before, I was like, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, I guess. I don't know what else to tell you.
Time for you to find someone else to hang with, I
Yeah,
guess.
it's like I'm 43, I'm not 20,
It says that, it'd be like, you never drank with me then.
Yeah.
If you had, you'd know the truth.
That's fair.
And I mean, I'll be honest. As long as I keep within the lines, I do enjoy being manic. And I feel really good when I'm in the moment. I know I make people smile. I know I make people laugh.
Yeah.
Because I'm so animated and I'm, kind of silly and kind of crazy and stuff. So that part is really good. It's not something that I choose to do. I'm never going to like, hey, I want to be manic.
Yeah, it's not like you have a switch on your arm that you just throw once in a while and go into mania. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, hey, let's have mania night.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Right?
Yeah.
So it's not like, with drinking, I can just, drink a few drinks and I'm da-da-da. But so I don't know. So yeah, so we'll see how this is all going to go. It'll take me probably a good couple of weeks to get everything straight. But I don't think I've done any permanent damage this time around, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Not say that has been the case in the past. So, success. And you learn every time you go through one of these cycles. You learn from it, you grow from it, and you just got to keep looking forward and moving forward, and be super, super thankful that you have the support systems that you do around you.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly probably be on the streets in the gutter if I didn't have the support system that I've had in my life. So
I think that
cannot thank all you people out there that have supported me and are there for me. You have made this possible.
And that's probably true for a lot of us. Really, if somebody didn't care somewhere along the way, you never know when, that would have been the last straw for you. And I don't mean like, you kill yourself or anything along those lines, but it's just, you just don't know how far down a rabbit hole or whatever you want to call it, you may have ended up, so. Well,
if I seriously was going with bipolar unchecked, you knew me a good portion of my career.
Yeah.
You knew where my career was going.
Yeah.
It was not going anyplace good.
No, and that's the story with bipolar most of the time, is that, it's really hard to not, get some sort of treatment for it. If you leave it unchecked, it doesn't tend to get better. It just gets worse and worse and worse, and till, sooner or later you make a bad decision. And whether or not that's life-threatening isn't, who knows, but it can be, because, a lot of times risk inhibitors diminish. Again, it's very similar to alcohol in your system. It's, you do a lot of things and say a lot of things that you may not do when you're feeling normal. So, same with depression. You never know where you might try something that you wouldn't have tried had you not, that floor is there with the medicine that without it, who knows how far you'd fall. So it's, it's very important to, like you said, recognize and be grateful for your support systems, and to tell them thank you, so they know that the work they've put in is appreciated as well, because it's tough work, as we've found out over the years. both of us being someone supporting someone with mental illness, as well as hearing from others some of the things they've dealt with. So, it's tough work for them too. So,
And it's so tough when it comes to the business world, because I've been in corporate America for the majority of my career. And the first place I was at,
you realize you've been in corporate America most of your life.
Oh God. But
because you were working in a corporation, kind of that setting, even though it wasn't a full-on corporation. Out of high school, basically. So,
yeah. But one of the first places I was at, I was there for 13 years, and I got passed around quite a few different places, teams and whatnot. And one thing that followed me everywhere I went, and it was the bane of my existence, is the fact that you're too emotional.
I was going to say that it's been a long time. When I first started podcasting with you, you brought in those stories a lot.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
And it hasn't been a regular topic at all. And even though this has been a regular topic, but this was the first time where it was like, oh, I was supposed, my medication levels were off. Usually I had the bright idea that I'm changing my medicine on my own.
You are correct, or taking myself off meds.
Yes. So that's another thing that we haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah.
So this one, and how fast you caught it, that is your recovery in action.
That is growth for sure. Yes.
Yeah, if you want to hear something fun, go back and listen to some of the early episodes, with Brian and I, or even some of the beginning ones with Brian Heno and I. If you listen to us then versus now, you'll see a lot of changes. I think all three of us.
Huge.
Yeah.
I was sharing with the band. So I haven't told you about this, Jen, but I started a song for your late friend T last year, and I finished it like about a month ago. And the band my band wants to play it, and we have been doing it in rehearsal, and it's turning out to be a really great song. But they wanted to know what's the story behind this song, and I explained it all. And part of it was about the podcasting and doing podcasts, and one part of that it segued into Crazy Life and our trip to the Chicago Art Institute. And I was telling the story about Brian being in, like if I could imagine the worst place I'd ever want to be, and I noticed none of it. And Tom looked at me and said, "That's medicine." And I was like, whoa, because you bringing up like how things are different, that was kind of a turning point. There's a steady rise of recovery because of, and it's such a great, when Tom phrased it like that, it just hit me right in the head. He was like, I'm like, you're right. It was medicine. Medicine are those moments of clarity.
Yeah.
When we have a chance to see like, oh, I can do things, I can be better. I can do these things that I have, that, I haven't been able to do because of my disease. And part of that's this podcast. And it was great to share that with people that other than someone that listens, which I have very few of my friends that do. The other people around me know that I podcast, but they don't know how important it is to me and why. And it was a great night to just play music and actually be able to share the motivation for it.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I cannot wait to hear it.
I'll have to send you the little demos. I've been sharing with Brian because it's been a fun little like the process of how a song gets written. Really neat, but I cannot wait till I have let's just say a good enough recording that I'm willing to put out there, because I think it's going to be a great song.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Love it.
And his family and the Wolfpack and everybody's on Facebook. So anytime you'd feel open to wanting to share it with them, they would die for it, I'm sure.
Want to do that, yeah. And last night, our guitar player, he hasn't been there in about a month, and he walks in, he's being hit by these new songs. And this one, he finally goes, he's like, okay, explain the lyrics. And I'm like, well.
Gather around, children.
So once a gentleman known by lowercase t. Yeah. Oh, good dude. So, well, do we want, I mean, because we're like probably an hour and a half, aren't we?
Yeah, we are almost spot on. So, yeah, I was actually thinking that we just let this one, the focus of this one be bipolar.
Okay.
And
mental health conversation.
Yeah, and then we'll just cover the other part of the sensory processing disorder next time.
Cool. Works for me. All right, folks. Well, we covered a lot of ground tonight. I think that is kind of an understatement. But a lot of information, a lot of stories to be told. But if you would like to continue the conversation with us, and we would absolutely love for you to do that, and you can reach us at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com is our website. The Crazy Life Podcast at outlook.com is our email. And you can reach me, ready for it, folks? I got a new one, at Sweet Bourbon Kiss on the Twitters. So we are stepping away from Jen's Crazy Life, and we're going to at Sweet Bourbon Kiss. And so you can reach me on the Twitters, and you know me, I share everything with everybody. So if you have any questions, you have any thoughts, any comments, anything you want to talk to me about, feel free to reach out to me, and I give you permission to DM me. If we're friends, just DM me, and we can chit-chat. I'd love to hear from you. All right, Hanno, how can they reach you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Hanno. Look for L Hummingbird. That is me on Facebook and Instagram, just Hanno Heiter, Facebook Messenger, etc. And check out my other podcast, Moving the Needle Podcast, where we just released our Goodfellas versus Boogie Nights episode. And this week we will be releasing Dr. Marston and his Wonder Women, which was recorded with our good friend Jeannie and Kiki, who have been both guests on The Crazy Life. And we had a really fun conversation. And this one will be a little more interesting because I don't share it much on this show, but I talk a little bit more about my relationship lifestyle on that show because it's very much a part of the topic of this movie. And I probably open up about it. It was funny afterwards. Kiki asked me, she's like, you kind of paused there. Were you feeling, I'm like, no, I was actually looking for the right word, but I said it was actually the first time that I've shared very openly about my lifestyle, and it felt good. It was a good venue to do it.
Cool.
Awesome.
And you can find me on Twitter at Stunami. Excuse me. And you can find my other podcast at salty_language on Twitter or at saltylanguage.com. It's just me and my best pal talking about just whatever stuff we've seen in the world or whatever. Like this week we talked about Nintendo Online's expansion pack and Wizard being fired by a city, a bunch of TV and movie type trailer stuff and whatever. So, just whatever else happened in our lives. So if that sounds interesting to you, please check us out. That show's not safe for work, so please keep that in mind. You can find this show on Twitter at The Crazy Life Pod, where I post when new episodes go up. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. We're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So please go check out the other shows on the network. Excuse me. And yeah, if you need help, as we've said in here, please find help. There's all sorts of people out there willing to work with you, and support groups and all sorts of stuff out there. Just please look for some help if you need it. And again, if your rules change on what's going on in your life, make sure you tell your support system. Tell somebody talk to a doctor or whatever. Make sure that you're not trying to fight through this stuff alone. Because no matter what the mental illness is, they all want you to fight it alone. So, fight against it and, try to put a team together because it makes it a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, as always, please be kind to one another. Help other people out when you can. And just try to put good energy out in the world because, we've all seen how toxic social media has become. So, before you hit send, ask the questions that Heno's brought up a bunch of times in the show, especially does this need to be said and does this need to be said now? And also, think about your end game. Like, what are you trying to gain here? And if it's just to be a troll, maybe just delete that comment and move on, and try not to engage these goobers who want to fight with everybody. That's exactly what they want. So instead, just be nice and kind and whatever. I know it's tough sometimes. Real tough. I had a couple instances this week where it took everything I could to bite my tongue and restrain my fingers from typing responses. But please try to be I don't want to say the better person, but just try to be, just try not to contribute to the anger and hate and whatnot out there.
Absolutely. And with that, go out there, have the best week you possibly can, and do not forget, wiggle those toes.